wait till we go live here. I'm going to wait till we go live here. All right, it looks like we are. Okay. Give everyone a few minutes so that we can get everyone in here. All right, I guess I'll go ahead and get started. So, let's just go ahead and jump right into it. Where did my mouse go? There it is. All right, so right about now, if this were a live class, I'd be asking you to pull out your cell phone and turn on the Wi-Fi, but leave it disconnected from a hotspot, and I'll explain what that demo would be about. If we were in person, it would be kind of eye-opening, but for now, we'll just keep going. So this is me. My name's Adam Martheler. You can boldface my name. The part that needs emphasis, it's Martha with an L-E-R at the end. I've been in the IT field for about 25 years. I have a passion for technology, a passion for flying, and a passion for my family. So what this class is going to cover, we're going to cover what the goal of the class is. We're going to discuss what cybersecurity is, what it entails. We're going to talk about hackers. We're going to talk about why cybersecurity is important and relevant. Most common types of attacks, passwords. We're going to play a game of who would you trust, and then we're going to see if you've been hacked. So the goal. This picture here is kind of the encompasses the entire purpose of the class. And you see a gentleman reaching for fruit, but not just fruit. He's reaching for the low-hanging fruit. And what we want to do is we want to prevent you from being that low-hanging fruit. We don't want to scare you. We want to inform you. If you're informed, you're more likely to make informed decisions, and informed decisions protect you and your family and friends. So what is cybersecurity? On the whole, high-level people like me have to make sure that the servers aren't on fire. We have to make sure that your data is protected, encrypted, and secured. And we have to make sure that all these loose ends are tied up so that we can make ourselves a secure environment. But there's also a personal responsibility. You have to make sure your credit cards numbers are safe. You have to make sure your family and friends are safe online. Make sure you have good practices. So, with that in mind, who's responsible for cybersecurity? And the answer is everybody. On the whole, it used to be thought that high-level people are what's really responsible for cybersecurity, but it's, as we've come to find out, it's everyone's responsibility. Everyone has to chip in and learn this stuff. So that's what this class is about. So let's talk about hackers real quick. The first thing most people conjure up their mind when they talk about hackers is, a hooded figure with an LCD glow on their face and wires strewn about. That's just not the case. And some of you may actually know who this gentleman is, but the people who don't ask, who is this? Does he look dangerous? Most people would say, no, he doesn't look dangerous. But this is Kevin Mitnick, one of the most famous hackers out there. And while he did start off life with a life of crime, or his career as a life of crime, he's now a cybersecurity consultant. He's one of the good guys. So just goes to show you don't always judge a book by its cover, and you can't always judge a character by, past events. So let's talk about hackers specifically, the different types. And you see three gentlemen here, one wearing a white hat, gray hat, and a black hat. And those are the different types of hackers. So I'm going to talk about white hats because I think those are the most important ones. And by and large, I'd say 90%, gun to my head, about 90% of the hackers out there are white hats. Those are the people who find vulnerabilities, they fix them, find them, and report them to either the end user or the company in question so they can get it patched and fixed. They're the good guys. and they're the majority of hackers out there. And now I'm going to talk about the black hats. The black hats are the bad guys. Those are the people who will steal, kill, destroy, rape, pillage for profit. And they're the bad guys, and they're the ones that get the most media attention. So most of the time when the media is talking about hackers, that's the ones they're talking about. Now, gray hat's kind of hard to define, but I'll use this scenario. You know those calls you get to ask you to renew your car's extended warranty, even though it's like a 1926 Pinto or whatever it is. It's a really old vehicle. Something clearly you couldn't get an extended warranty on or without paying a whole lot of money. Well, what they do is they sometimes will get a hold of the callback number of this call center and then spam their call center so they can't make or receive phone calls. Now, society on the whole probably benefits from this activity. The problem is it's technically illegal, hence the term gray hat, because of the gray legal area that they end up residing in. Now, that's not to say that gray hats only run around in the gray legal moral area, but sometimes a white hat or black hat will go into the gray area and do activities from time to time. That's the best definition I could think of. So let's talk about thumb drives for a minute. Everyone knows what they are. Everyone uses them. And everyone's bought one. But have you ever found one? And let's be honest, what would you do with it? And most people would probably I've had most people tell me, "Oh, I wouldn't plug it into my computer. I'd just throw it away or leave it there or not touch it." But I've had a few people actually get honest with me and say they'd plug it right into the machine and check out what's in there. So we're going to talk about why that may not be a good idea. Okay, so I'm going to talk about this video before I start playing it. This white device here is called a USB kill, and what it does is it collects the power that's given through the USB port, and it charges the capacitor and releases that charge back into the data pairs on the motherboard, and in some cases can actually fry the motherboard. This other device is a shield. It protects the computer, and when he touches the two wires together, you can see the shock that would have been delivered to the computer. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Getting some audio issues figured out. Just making sure you guys can hear it. And there it goes. The computer's gone. That's not semi-broken. That's not just shut off. It's a fried motherboard. Now, newer computers probably can protect just that one USB port, but you'll still fry a USB port. And without some soldering or board repair, you will not be getting that USB port back. So this is Black Hat USA 2014, and if you'll watch in the bottom left-hand corner of this Windows 7 machine, you'll see another reason why you probably should be plugging in rogue USB devices. No, not advancing a slide. Play.
What we are not going to talk about. So standard USB thumb drive, standard Windows computer, plug that in here. Should show up as a new disk, empty disk, as empty as it gets. You can even reformat it. So there's nothing on this disk. So this isn't a talk about viruses on USB flash drives in the storage partition. All right? We will see in a couple of seconds what this talk is about.
So he's simulating the user getting up, walking away. I don't know necessarily
Let me say another thing what this is not about. This is not exploiting a Windows software vulnerability that could be patched. So this is not research on USB software stacks on Windows or any other operating system. Here, you just saw what this talk is about. This USB device turning into a different USB device, in this case a keyboard device, and exploiting this computer. What this did in this split second that you saw, downloaded through PowerShell a Metapeta remote shell, and now this computer is remote controlled. And the sky's the limit as to what a remote attacker can do now, but we're not focused.
So he plugs in a USB device, he formats it, so basically wipes the entire thumb drive. And then I don't know if it's a timer, or I don't know if the computer or the thumb drive is actually listening or watching for keystrokes or mouse movement. But at some point, the script executes, you see keyboard strokes go in, it downloads a interpreter, and now this computer is remote controlled. So another reason you probably shouldn't be plugging in rogue USB devices. Now, I'm not saying that you should be throwing these things away. What I'm saying, though, is if you work at a company and you see one of these laying around, you may want to turn it into IT so they can check it out. I promise you we're not after your thumb drives. We just want to make sure they're safe. If they're safe, we'll likely just get right back to you. But they may not be safe, you know. You really don't know what you're plugging into your machine, so just be safe. So now I want to talk about RFID capable credit cards, or the wireless tap to pay. Most people ask me, how do I know if I've got that feature? And you'll see a card, and then there'll be the waves coming out of the side. That's how you know that you have it, and that's the same symbol they use on pay kiosks so that you can pay with it. And they are convenient, but there's one thing you got to watch out for, that people can steal some information off of it, and that's what this is going to cover.
Hi, my name is Mike Aiello. I'm from a company called Differware. That's RFID backwards wear. I'm here today to give a demonstration of RFID credit card skimming and our RFID blocking wallets. So what I have in front of me is an RFID credit card skimmer that we put together. The core component of this is an off-the-shelf RFID credit card reader that we bought off of eBay for $5. It's plugged into some electronics components that allows it to communicate with a cell phone that I have set up here. This is an RFID enabled credit card, and what will happen is as soon as I scan it on the RFID enabled reader, the numbers, the credit card number and the expiration date will be transferred to the phone. You're not going to be able to see it very well, but you will see some data show up when I do scan the card. So here we go, scanning an RFID enabled credit card with an RFID reader. So what you probably saw or potentially saw there is the credit card number and the expiration date of the credit card coming up on my cell phone. This cell phone and this device can be up to 300 feet away. When you put the RFID enabled credit card, that can be scanned when you bring it near the RFID reader, in one of the Differware RFID blocking wallets, it can't be scanned. Regardless of how close you bring the RFID credit card to an RFID skimmer with a Differware wallet, it cannot be read. You can physically make it touch it at any angle and it will not be read. But as soon as you take it out, it's able to be read. I'm Mike Aiello, and that's the Differware RFID blocking wallet.
So I want to talk about this for a minute. This video is kind of old, but the principles that I want to get across here still stand. One of the things that's a little outdated is these credit cards no longer transmit the credit card number and the expiration date or the security number out in plain text. That has been changed. The standard now is it uses, I believe, one-time pins, and I haven't done a lot of experimentation with it, but I still believe that those could be used for nefarious purposes. Just need to do some testing. But what I wanted to get across here is the wallets that he uses blocks these RFID cards from even working, so that people can't, run a scanner across your behind or next to your purse and get your credit card information off of it. There's also RFID blocking sleeves you can put these in. So if you've got one of these cards, I highly recommend going and getting a RFID blocking wallet or an RFID blocking sleeve to protect yourself.
And Brady walked up to this ATM.
Wait a minute, before I get started, I have a special place in my book of bad people for media. They tend to. There's an industry term called FUD, and these people tend to use that to their advantage quite a bit. It stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And media likes to use this a lot to scare people and sensationalize stuff. And it's not really all that sensationalized if you break it down to its core components and you understand what's going on. And I'll point out when the video does this, and that's the parts I want you to not pay so much attention to. But I do want you to pay attention to how this ATM machine was defrauded, and I want you to pay attention to it.
Everything looked fine to the naked eye, but he had an inclination to check it out anyway, and it's a good thing he did.
There you go. Unbelievable. Right over the outside.
This video posted to his Facebook page acts as a public service announcement, viewed hundreds of thousands of times. Brady doesn't want to show his face or get any credit for the helpful tip, but he suggests examining the card reader every time.
If it moves at all, there's some sort of issue with the ATM. This one, when I pulled on it, it didn't move, but also if you squeeze them, they're not supposed to flex at all. So I squeezed it, and at that point, it started flexing a little bit. I pulled on it a little bit harder, and I realized that there was another card reader behind the actual card reader there.
In the video, you can see police officers prying off a card skimmer super glued onto the facade of the Citibank ATM inside of a Seaford 7-Eleven. I caught up with shoppers
Here's where
outside.
the fun begins.
I don't even know what to even look for, you know, it looks real.
Also recovered by investigators, a pinhole camera with a transmitter secured right above the keypad, used to capture unsuspecting victims' fingers entering their personal identification number.
Now you can't even trust the machine.
The devices are now in the hands of police officers who are investigating.
People who try to scam money, they should be prosecuted immediately.
Brady says everyone can help curb this scam.
Hopefully, more people will notice what to do, how to do it, and find some more of these things so we can put a stop to it.
Lesson learned, next time you hit the ATM, make sure you pull and pry to ensure nobody's taking aim at your personal banking information. In Seaford, Long Island, Magdalena Doris, CBS 2 News.
Former FBI agent Manny Gomez says.
All right, let's pause that. The other thing I wanted to point out is likely those things work via Bluetooth. There are apps you can get for your phone that can scan for these devices. A cunning person or a cunning thief would probably change the Bluetooth identifier on it so that, I say identifier, MAC address, so it doesn't get recognized. But most criminals are lazy. So I've got one here. It's called Skimmer Scanner. And I'm going to go ahead and do a quick scan. It's going to turn on the Bluetooth device on my phone, and it's going to start scanning the Bluetooth devices that it finds in the immediate vicinity. And let's see what comes up here. Yep. So no skimmer found. You can get apps like this on the Apple Store and Android Store. This one's called Skimmer Scanner. But when you walk up to an ATM, I always squeeze the card reader to make sure it doesn't move, check for a pinhole camera. And also sometimes they'll even go the extra mile and go ahead and use that app as well. And that way you've got 3 layers of protection around you. And this isn't just hitting, end users. This is hitting small local governments. This is an article from March 27th, 2018 of Baltimore 911 getting hacked. And it's not just them. There's agencies in North Carolina that got hit, agencies in Atlanta. I think there's another one in Snellville. I can't remember. But there's several agencies that have been hit, and it's not going to stop. So we need to educate our end users and make sure that they stay safe. Hence the whole point of this video. Now, the demo at the very beginning when I asked you to turn on your Wi-Fi and not be connected to an access point, at this point in the demo, this is where I'd show you where your cell phone, if you have your Wi-Fi on, is going to be looking for hotspots to connect to, and it's going to try to find the hotspots it's familiar with. So it's going to actually call out to those hotspots trying to find one. The problem with that is an actor could get these beacons, is what they're called, and collect all the access points that your phone's looking for. Once it finds those, I can broadcast one or all of them out even and get your phone to connect to my device. And at that point, I become your internet service provider. And at that point, you get all kinds of crazy stuff. So the lesson there is if you're going to go to the mall, shut off your Wi-Fi. If you're going to be out and about for a long time and not connected to anything, just to be safe. So now we're going to talk about the most common types of attacks that hackers are going to use. And this is going to cover how you can protect yourself. So the most common type, and this is the one I wanted to cover first, is phishing. These are emails you get purporting to be from someone else. Like, the say they're from Amazon, but they're not really. And this example is a perfect example. So I'm going to blow these up so you can see specifically what we're talking about, if you try to read that real fast, that looks like management at amazoncanada.ca. But if you'll take a second look, you'll see it says management at mazoncanada.ca. So in this particular case, the hacker registered the mazoncanada.ca domain, and then the @ symbol tricks your brain to thinking it's Amazon Canada. It's quite clever. But yeah, look over the sending email address and make sure it matches who they purport to say they're from. So if you're expecting something from Amazon.com and it says Mazon.com with an @ symbol, if you just read over, glaze over it real quick, you can get fooled. The second thing you want to look for is a generic greeting. They didn't mention you by name, even though they know your name. That's kind of suspicious. And the last thing you want to do is, in this particular case, the display text on the link shows you where it's supposed to go, but if you hover your mouse over it, it's going somewhere completely different. And this display text can be used to show anything. It could show you click here, an image. They could do any number of things. So what you want to do instead of just go ahead and clicking on it to reset your password is you want to put your mouse over it and see where it's actually going. And it's going to something else completely different. It's going to, in this particular example, it's going to redirect. I can't even pronounce that, but it's going somewhere else completely different. So with all these things in mind, likely this thing is a phish. And at that point, if your organization has something to report phish, go ahead and report it. If not, delete it and move on. So now I want to talk about ransomware. And at this point, if I had a class, I would ask everyone to raise their hand that do backups. And then I'd ask them to keep their hands up if they do off-site. And then there'll be a few people who do. And then I'll say, all right, put your hands down. Those you do backups, pretend you don't. And ask yourself this question. If you had all your videos, pictures, and everything memory related on your computer encrypted and held ransom for a sum of money, would you pay it? And most everybody there, I've had a mix of answers like, yes, I would. There's been a few honest people. Then some people say, well, I don't keep crap on my computer. I don't care. But the point is, the people who do backups, they start to see the value of their backups. And at that point, maybe rethink making sure that the backups work and maybe test recovery. And the people who don't do backups at all, maybe start thinking, do I have anything important? Do I want to back up this machine? And are things of value data-wise on my machine that if they were lost, I could get them back? And it really gets people thinking because ransomware is just one small sliver of this. You could lose your data to hardware loss. You can lose it to file system corruption, having your house demolished by a tornado. You want to be able to protect your data on here. So a good way to do that is backups, and not just backups, but off-site backups. If you just want to protect your files, the Apple iCloud that you back your phone up to is perfectly acceptable for this. If all your stuff that you want to back up is maybe just on your phone instead of your computer, that'd be a great way to do it. Same with I think Google has a backup option for that stuff as well for your phone. So if you're using that'll work too. Just make sure that that stuff is there. And then if you don't, Carbonite has pretty good offsite backup for I think Macintosh and PC, so you can back up your stuff to the cloud that way. So social engineering, this is a little less common with one specific example, but in this particular case, well, not in this particular case, but we're going to be talking about social engineering as a whole. There's one facet of social engineering that's quite prevalent, but to get you to understand what social engineering is, I have to cover a few examples. So this first example is, who is this? It looks like the UPS guy, right? The problem is you can buy the uniforms online and lie about being the UPS guy and go up to someone's house and get bits of information they could use later. So you really don't know if that is the UPS guy. So you want to maybe ask them to drop the stuff off the porch. But again, this is just an example. This is not something that's common, but it's just letting you know that, people can lie. And that's the whole premise behind social engineering is lying. And here's another example. Again, not too common, but it gets the idea across. This is what social engineering is. Shout out to Jessica, by the way.
So I invited a few of the world's best hackers to try to hack me and show me where my vulnerabilities are. And now I'm going to meet them in Las Vegas for DEF CON, the biggest hacker convention of the year. They're going to hack me using social engineering, which is essentially hacking without any code. They just use a phone and an internet connection.
Do you want to do a sample phishing call?
What's phishing?
Phishing is voice elicitation, and basically what you do is you use the phone to extract information or data points that can be used in a later attack.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Who are you going to call?
Maybe I'll call your cell phone provider and see if I can get them to give me your email address.
I bet they're good. I bet they have my back. But yeah, go for it.
I'm gonna spoof
Love
from
that
your
face.
number, so it's
She
gonna
knows
look
he's
like
got
it's
him.
calling from you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm so sorry. Can you hear me okay? My baby, I'm sorry. my husband's like, we're about to apply for a loan and we just had a baby and he's like, get this done by today. So I'm so sorry. I can't call you back. I'm trying to log into our account for uses information and I can't remember what email address we used to log the account. The baby's crying and can you help me? Awesome.
In just 30 seconds,
At gmail.com?
Jessica gets access to my personal email address.
Now, if I needed to add our older daughter on our account so she could call in and make changes, how would I need to go about doing that? You would have to send me a secure PIN through a text message? Yeah, well, the thing is, I don't think I'll be able to receive a text message if I'm on the phone. Shh. Oh, I'm not on there either? So I thought when we got married, he added me to the account.
Jess uses my girlfriend's name and a fake social security number
5127.
to set up her own personal access to my account.
Wait, I'm sorry, so there's no password on my account right now? Can I set that up?
She even gets the support person to change my password.
Thank you so much for your help today.
So she just basically blocked me out of my own account.
I'll get her fed after this. All right, thank you.
Holy So they just gave you access to my entire cell phone account.
You're gonna have to go on and change your password now because it's Jess, my name.
And all it took was a crying baby and a phone call.
Yeah.
So I wanted to mention that, I wanted to ask, what was one thing that name one thing the guy could do to protect himself? And as far as I can tell, I've thought about this for a long time. I don't think there's anything he could have done because it wasn't him that broke protocol. It was the person answering the phone. So if you have security protocol set up at work or at home and you've set up standards to follow, like don't open the door for strangers or whatever they might be, follow those standards and policies that you've set up because they protect you and your company and yourself and friends, family, all that stuff. I guess that's really the takeaway here is always follow your policies. No, don't play it again. And so this one I thought Baird Special mentioned. This is a tech support scam. It's another type of social engineering, but it's so prevalent I thought it Baird Special mentioned. Now, I want to talk about the one on the left first because I think it's probably going to highlight most of what I'm talking about. These error messages, quote unquote, come in a web page form. In this particular case, they're asking you to call a 1-800 number, and that's really kind of the crux and the dead giveaway that it is a scam. Is they ask you to call a 100 number. The second clue is it's in a web page. And so that's the first thing I want to call your attention to. You can see the address there, and you can see it's clearly in a browser. The one on the right, however, is full screen. It looks like someone's desktop, and it's actually a screenshot from a machine that I worked on one time. If you hit F11 on the keyboard, and this is universal almost on any computer on any browser, it will take the browser into full screen mode. And if it's in full screen mode and you hit F11 again, it will take it out of full screen mode. So this particular case, you hit F11, that full screen image will go back down to a windowed screen. You can see it's in a browser. You can close it and move on. So again, if it's in a browser and it's asking you to call a 100 number, likely it's a scam. Close it and move on. So now I want to talk about passwords. So you see this image here, the gentleman's thinking of a password, and you see it connected to literally everything, social media, credit card, so on and so forth. So why is that dangerous, right? So in order for me to get across why it's dangerous, I want you to see this. So this is a comment from CommitStrip. I'm going to read it for you. The boss is asking his subordinate here, hey, I need access to all the users' passwords, so if someone forgets their password, I could give it to them over the phone. And the guy at the laptop says that's not possible. Passwords are encrypted. Users will need to use the I forgot my password button. The boss then says, well, hang on, you're saying you don't even know how to implement this kind of basic functionality securely. And the guy says, no, what I'm saying is we intentionally don't do this kind of thing for security reasons. So if you ever wondered why you couldn't have the support person tell you what your password is, that's why. They're using decent security practices, and at the very least, they are not storing in plain text, or they have a policy in place preventing them from telling you what it is. In either case, it's more secure than being able to do this. And the guy says, listen, either you find a way to display the user's passwords in the admin, or I'm canceling the whole project. Just make it work. And the last slide is data theft. User passwords are stored in plain text, and the guy's complaining all these IT guys are incompetent. So the point of this is, in this particular case, the admin had forced the developer to set up a project where it stored the credentials in plain text. And then they got breached, and then they took that database with all the emails and passwords stored in plain text. And not just that site, but literally any other site that you are using those credentials now is also potentially compromised, and a hacker could get into those accounts as well. So really, when we're talking about using unique password for each site, you're talking about limiting the damage a hacker can do. You can't control a website security, but you can control what credentials you give them. So I'll list a couple of password managers down here. The one that's probably most common and prevalent is LastPass. I recommend that one for most users. It's a free option that becomes paid once you cross a certain threshold, but most people will not be crossing that threshold. And then if you're a little more paranoid or controlling over the credentials you give out, you can use KeePass, and that one creates a little database that you have to keep up with, and you can do whatever you want with it at that point. But LastPass is what I'd recommend. Mostly KeePass is a decent secondary if you're a little bit more controlling. Let's talk about password complexity, and this is a tale of two passwords. This one here is 9 characters, password 1 with a capital P and a number 1 at the end. And then this one here, fluffy bunnies are cute with a couple asterisks at the end. Both of them are fairly easy to remember, but what kind of benefit are you going to get out of this, right? So let's talk about that. I've got a browser opened up here. Let's make sure you can see it. I think you can. Yes, you can. All right, cool. So I'm going to type in password 1, and it says the password will be cracked instantly. And what this website does is it takes whatever password you type into it, and then it compares it against this algorithm that they have developed, and it will tell you how long it will take a hacker to crack that password hash. In this particular case, it's instantly. And so this would be a good way to test what your current password is. However, I wanted to warn you, you never want to type your actual password into this. You want to type in a variant of it. Now, I've tinfoil hat off. I've checked the site. It's using JavaScript. It is safe, as far as I could tell. But tinfoil hat back on. You never, ever, ever want to type your production password into a website without no, you just never want to do it into a public website like this, where you don't want to type your password for Amazon into any other site besides Amazon, is my point. So again, type a variant, and you can see almost how secure that password is. Now I'm going to type in the other one just to show you the difference. All right, so I just typed in fluffy bunnies are cute, capital F at the very beginning and asterisk at the end, and it's 12 sextillion years. Now, I'm not quite sure how many zeros that is, but it's a lot. And basically what it's trying to get across is the hacker's not going to get into it. It's basically not going to happen. So let me get back to my slides here. So for that kind of benefit, is it that much harder to remember? And I think most people would say no, it's not. Just a word or a phrase, or not a word or a phrase, a phrase or a couple of random objects are perfect password makers, like biscuits and gravy. Actually, let me try that one, show you that one. Let me type in biscuits and gravy, and I can show you what I'm talking about. So capital B, biscuits and capital G gravy, and then I'm just going to type a couple of numbers, 245, and then a symbol. And there you go, 43 quintillion years. Perfectly acceptable password right there. So that's kind of the point I wanted to get across is you want to use if you can't store a randomized password in a password manager, this is a perfect opportunity to use this method of password management. Just make up a phrase in your head, and then that's what you use. I use this to open my KeyPass and then get to all my randomized passwords. But all my passwords I use online are randomized. For anything else, this is what you want to use. Where is my mouse? There it is. So now we're going to play a game called Who Would You Trust? And before we remember one thing, if it's online, it can be hacked. So a lot of people would think, oh, if they got hacked, I wouldn't trust them anymore. And that's kind of a faulty place to go, because if it's online, it can be hacked. And so to believe something's unhackable is to be unrealistic. So first, I want to talk about is MyFitnessPal. They were hacked March 29th, 2018. The company made a press announcement about the hack. The company emailed each user about the hack. I know because I was part of the MyFitnessPal. I had an account there when they got hacked. The company put up a banner on their main page relaying the user to information about the hack, and the company released the type of information leak, what information was not affected, and what each person should do. And then the other company I want to talk about is Pizza Hut. Hacked let's see, October 1st, 2017. They waited 2 weeks before announcing the hack. They did not send out any user emails, and most of the user base found out when pizzas were being ordered through their accounts without their knowledge. I only know about this hack because I follow a YouTuber who had his account hacked, and then I started doing some research, and I found one article from a local news outlet that covered the event, and that was it. There was literally nothing else about this. They didn't, from as far as I could tell, did not put out a whole lot of information about this hack. While MyFitnessPal kind of went out of their way to tell users about it. So who would you trust more and why? And most people I've talked to would answer MyFitnessPal, and I would agree with that assessment. Because MyFitnessPal went out of their way to tell people what had happened, how to protect themselves, what information was leaked. They went out of their way to tell users that, hey, bad thing happened, here's how to protect yourself. Whereas the other company didn't do near as much, or I don't know if they did anything at all, or even if they were aware of the hack. I'm not entirely sure, but basically one company handled a lot better than the other. Now we're going to find out if you have been hacked, and let me explain what I mean by that. I don't mean if your computer has been hacked. What I mean is your email address. So I'm going to go to this website, haveibeenpwned.com, and I'm going to type in bill@microsoft.com. And in case you don't know what I'm talking about, this is, I'm guessing, Bill Gates' password or email address. I'm not entirely sure if it is or not, but this is basically a good example email address I can type in without typing my own. And so old Bill here has been involved in 77 breaches, and what this means is he's registered 77 other sites with that email address, and since then it's been involved in 77 breaches. It doesn't necessarily mean that he has bad security practices. What it does mean is that he's registered his email address to a site that has been compromised. And so if you browse through here, you can see several different examples of where Bill has registered his email address. And the one I wanted to find in here was the one I was just talking about. Yeah, MyFitnessPal right here. So you can see here the compromised data was email addresses, IP addresses, passwords, and usernames. This is why it's really important that you don't use the same password across platforms, because if I had that password, at that point, I could go to these addresses and see, or these sites, and see if I could get into old Bill's account here. But I doubt he uses the same password for everything, so it's probably fine. And more than likely, he is safe. So You can use that site, and that's haveibeenpwned.com. The other website where you look at your password is howsecureismypassword.net. And that is it. Let's see if there's any questions for anyone watching live. And I don't see any, so that's it from me. Thank you for watching, and I hope this has been helpful, and I will talk to you guys later.